Outdoor Radio Show by Willowpine Outdoors. Brought to you in part by Black Eagle Arrows, Phoenix Rods, Upwind Odor Elimination, Willowpine Tackle Company, Brody Bend Calls, Raptor Razor, River to Sea, Apollo Shield, Ice Force, Seagar Fishing Line, Spy Point Trail Cameras, and Wyoming County Whitetail. Now, here's your host, Joey Buttram.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to the Outdoor Radio Show by Willowpine Outdoors. It's good to have you. I appreciate you listening to us. It is March. It's actually the end of March, almost April, and things are finally gearing towards the good part of fishing season. March is usually a little bit slow, but then April really picks it up. The walleye bite gets good, the crappie bite gets good, and the bass fishermen guys are all starting their tournaments, and everything is progressing forward. I always compare April and May to October and November. October and November are usually really busy for deer hunting and duck hunting, and April and May is kind of that way for fishing. So my second favorite part of the year is among us, and I'm super excited to get out and catch some walleyes. This is episode number 26, and we have kind of a short show this week. We don't have a big superstar interview or anything like that. We just have a couple of Willowpine pro staffers. Eli Eccles and Matt LaFleur are coming on to talk with us about what they've been doing. I know Eli is going to talk turkey hunting and mushroom hunting and fishing, and I'm sure Matt LaFleur is going to talk spring waterfowl hunting as well as turkey hunting and things he's been doing down in Alabama and really all over the country. And the guy travels to hunt all the time, so he's always got some pretty neat stories. So that'll be coming up here in just a little bit. In case you didn't see it on Facebook, we posted a video, early spring cataract crappies, where Kenny Parsons and I went out to Cataract and did some crappie fishing and showed the way that we do it this time of year when we're catching crappies in open water on channel edges and very pre-spawn fish, and a lot of trolling and drifting and that sort of thing. So if you haven't seen that video, it's just a 11-minute episode of Willowpine TV. You can catch it on YouTube or go over to our Facebook page, and we've posted it up on there too. Hope to have a whole lot more of those type of videos coming out this year. It's just a matter of filming, and anybody in the industry that gets out and does filming knows that it takes a lot of time and effort to put together 10 to 15 minutes of good footage, but it's a lot of fun doing it, and I have more fun editing it. So with that being said, anybody out there that does like to video their fishing trips or their hunts, and you're interested in getting involved with the outdoor industry, give us a call or shoot us an email. We'd love to edit your footage and make shows out of it and have you on our pro staff. willowpineoutdoors@gmail.com, or just go over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/willowpine, and shoot us a message. Either way, we'd love to have you. So keep that in mind if it's something you've ever been interested in doing. Well, in March, we've done a whole lot of crappie fishing. We've been to Cataract Lake, we've been to Glen Flint Lake, and we've been to Eagle Creek Reservoir. The first weekend of the month we spent at Cataract. We probably caught 100 fish, kept I think close to 30. We caught a ton of 6 to 8 inch fish, and so we threw a lot back, which Cataract's kind of becoming that way, and I think a lot of that's due to the fishing pressure. As soon as people start hearing that a lake is hot for a certain species of fish, it turns off pretty quick, which that seems to be the case of what's happened to Cataract. So maybe it'll slow down the fishing pressure and it'll pick back up here in a couple years, but we did manage to find some big ones still. I think the biggest one we took home was 11 or 12 inches. But that's what the video is from, is that trip actually. Then the second weekend we went to Eagle Creek Reservoir. I went with pro staffer Keith Johnson, and I think we brought home 20 or so fish. And the cool thing about Eagle Creek is that the average size is huge. So you end up catching, you don't catch the 100 fish that you do at Cataract, but the ones you do catch are, 10 inches or bigger. And I think the biggest one we took home that day was 13 inches or so. And they're good, thick, healthy fish. So that was kind of a fun trip. Because of that, we returned the following weekend, and it was rough. This time, Kenny Parsons went with me, and we spent a good 3 hours searching for fish. We'd catch one an hour maybe. Finally ended up putting together a program that worked, and I think brought home 15 or 20, but that was all that we caught were those 15 or 20. So that was a little rough, but met some guys on the water, which was kind of neat because we get back and we check the Indiana Fishing Facebook group, and there was probably a total of 7 or 8 boats out there that day, and 4 of them were using Willowpine tackle baits and catching fish. So it was really neat to see that. Then last weekend we went to Glen Flint Lake, which is out by Greencastle, Indiana. It's a real small lake, about 500 acres. In the past, I've not spent a whole lot of time crappie fishing it. I've done a lot of bass fishing and bluegill fishing out there, but we've never really chased the crappies, so it's kind of a new thing for me, but it's so close to the house that it's just like I need to figure out the crappies out there, and we pretty well did. I think we probably, again, kind of like at Cataract, caught about 100 fish. The average size wasn't huge, less than 8 inches. I think we ended up keeping about 20 total between 8 and 13 inches, which the biggest was 13, and he was a big 13. So that was kind of cool, figuring them out on that lake. I wish, I say we figured them out. We only kept 20, but we caught 100, and we really found the bigger fish later in the day. We started off fishing an area that I've had a little bit of luck before on crappies, but that didn't produce very well. So we started searching the lake, and we found a bunch of little ones in another spot. And then I thought, you know what, we need to get to warm water. So I started thinking about where the warmest water would be. We headed up the lake, and we started catching big crappies. So we had about an hour and a half left to fish when we started finally getting to the big ones. But all 4 weekends, we were fishing with Willowpine tackle jig heads, either 1/8 ounce or a 1/16 ounce, depending on how windy it was. And then above that jig head was a split shot, about 8-10 inches above the jig head, all on Seagar 6-pound fluorocarbon line. And the jig head was tipped with a minnow. And basically, you just troll that or drift it at about 0.5 miles per hour. If you drive around and find the crappies on your depth finder, you'll see them. They look like Christmas trees underwater or big groups of fish. And you just drop your bait down to where they're suspended and drift around, and you'll start catching them. So that was the program basically all weekend, or all 4 weeks. The other thing we did when we at Eagle Creek, to change it up a little bit, we had to find some brush piles, and then we just drifted those baits above the brush piles, and that program finally worked. But that's pretty much what we've been up to so far in March. April's going to get a whole lot busier. Walleye fishing really picks up. We'll probably start the season fishing the dams and the inlet creeks, dragging jigs, jig heads with a night crawler or swim baits. The walleye are spawning, so they run up the creek to spawn, or they stay down and spawn on the dam or the rocky banks. So if you're wanting to get out and try to catch some walleyes, right now is a good time to do it. You can also throw a jerk bait up there along the bank at night and catch them. So keep that in mind, and follow our Facebook page, because as we get out and if we have some success, we'll post how we did it. So the other thing I wanted to announce before we jump into the call with Eli Eccles is that we have joined the Browtine Industries Pro Staff. Browtine is a whitetail feed and seed company out of West Virginia. They produce some really awesome minerals for your mineral sites and feeders, and they also have a really awesome line of fall and spring food plot seed. The spring seed has a really high sugar ryegrass plant. It's different than a lot of your normal seed that you would buy, from some of these other companies. Check them out. The seed's incredible. The minerals are incredible. We've noticed a big difference on our trail cameras just this spring from putting out these minerals and attractants. So check them out, browtineindustries.com. You can also find them on Facebook, or if you just go to willowpine.net, scroll down to the bottom where our affiliates are listed, click on Browtine, it'll take you to their website. If you have any questions regarding that stuff, shoot us an email or message us on Facebook, and we'll help you out with that. But thanks to Browtine for having us. We're excited to start this partnership. We're going to go ahead now and jump into our first interview with Ellettsville, Indiana, Willowpine Prostaffer, Eli Eccles.
Big game animals can simultaneously detect obtrusive odors in a matter of seconds. When you enter his world, you're at the mercy of his senses. Eliminate the odor compounds that define your scent identity. Hunt down odors. Hunt upwind.
Introducing Threadlock from Seagar, an unprecedented new super braid. It's an ultra-strong 16-strand hollow core with unmatched abrasion resistance. And the future of braid doesn't stop there. Featuring our exclusive 8-strand microweave technology, all new SmackDown tournament braid is perfectly round and ultra-thin for pinpoint casts. Only from Seagar, the world leader, trusted by anglers the world over.
All right, everybody, I've got Willowpine Prostaffer Eli Eccles on the line. How you doing today, Eli?
Doing good, Joey.
Glad to have you back on the show. We try to get you on a few times a year. You always got things to talk about in the outdoor world. What have you been up to this year?
So far this year, I've been out fishing a couple times. I kind of wore myself out a little bit last year, in my pursuit of catching at least a smallmouth in every month. And then, so I kind of took it easy. Been out to the creek a couple times here in the last month or so, and got out one day last week and was finally able to catch some smallies, and so that was good to feel that tug on the other end of the line again, and made it out the other day to my grandma's, but I sat out in the rain most of the morning and only had one dink largemouth to show for it, so that was kind of frustrating, but I got to fish with a couple friends from Indiana fishing forums and hadn't seen them in a while, so it was nice to catch up with those guys, even though the fish weren't biting.
Yeah, it's always good to get out with old friends and share new experiences. Last year, you were in pursuit of a smallmouth for each month of the year, and you said you completed that. Do you got any new goals this year?
Well, there's always a few things in the back of my mind, but I've never caught a muskie. There's a couple lakes here not too far from a house that hold them, but and without having a boat, that's always kind of tricky to get out there and do that. But I don't know. I've been kind of kicking around the idea, just maybe I've kind of focused on catching smallies for the last 2 or 3 years, and not that I don't love that still, but maybe try and hit a couple ponds here, maybe do a little more pond fishing than I have the last few years, just to, for a little bit of a change up. Because President's Day, I went to a friend of mine, invited me to go to his great aunt's farm pond out just outside of Bloomfield. And so I had something happen that day. I'd never had it happen before. Went to the Marathon gas station here in town because I knew they had live bait. So I was just, scrounging, trying to find bee moths. And so I go back to their cooler, and they had four of the little plastic cups of bee moths, but they were moldy.
Yeah.
So I figured they'd been there for a little while. And so we got to Bloomfield, and I was able to scrounge up a thing of mealworms at a gas station there in Bloomfield. And so I used that. I honestly lost track of how many crappie and bluegill I caught, but my main goal is he'd told me there were some decent bass in the pond, so I was looking for a bluegill small enough that I could put on a bigger hook and throw that out, and wound up catching probably a 5 or 6 pound largemouth on a bluegill that day. So that was a nice way to end the day there.
Nice. That's always fun. I remember doing that exact thing as a kid. Bluegill fishing, you catch one that's tiny, throw it on a hook or on a bobber and a hook even, and toss it out there and just wait and see what happens. In my case, it was mostly a catfish that ended up with it. But
well, I told my buddy, I said, "Here's how you catch the biggest fish in the pond." And I there may be a bass or two in there bigger than that one I caught, but I'd say that one was definitely one of the bigger fish in the pond for sure. So
that's funny. I know you caught some pretty good ones last year doing that with, meeting your goal of one a month. What was the biggest one?
The biggest one was the one I caught in June. And, I didn't carry a measuring tape for the longest time, and then I wound up joining the Illinois Smallmouth Alliance, just, trying to support some of the local conservation groups. Well, regional, I guess, more so than local. But, and they sent me a measuring tape, but of course that happened after that. But I would say it was definitely an 18-inch fish. It had been, 18 and a half, 19, but I'm very confident in saying that one was an 18-incher. And, pound-wise, it's, when you're catching a fish out of moving water, they don't really pack on the pounds like a lake or a pond fish would. So, that 18-inch creek fish may not weigh as much as a 18-inch smallie out of the Great Lakes, but, it was probably, 3-4 pounds, I'd say. Yeah, that was, and I caught that kind of pretty much in the exact same spot that I caught a smaller fish the year before on the same kind of bait, throwing just a topwater pencil bait, walking the dog, and she came up and slurped it right off the surface. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet. It's all any topwater fishing. Anytime it works, it's great. If I could catch bass on topwater baits year round, I probably wouldn't ever walleye fish, but it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. Moving forward, what else you got going on this year? I know you get into the mushroom hunting and you do some turkey hunting. That's all coming up, or you getting geared up for that stuff?
Yeah, actually planning on heading out this Friday. I've seen some people posting pictures on a few of the different Facebook groups that, are kind of geared towards morels, and, I think a couple of them are just general mushroom groups, but most of them are morel. And I know at least a few of the pictures have been, or a couple of the posts have been not too far from where we go hunting. So I figure, you might as well go out and poke around in the woods. If they're not up, they're not up. But, there's only really one way to find out for sure. So I called my grandma the other day and told her to get herself ready, that we're going to head out this Friday and see what we can find. So, if they're not quite up yet, I would say it's not too far around the corner before they start coming up good. I just hope last year was pretty awful for us. So I'm hoping that this year's a little bit better.
Yeah, it seems like looking at the forecast for the next couple of weeks, the temperatures are kind of evening out finally. Going to hang around 50 degrees, mid-50s, 60s, so that should be good, getting everything going,
Yeah, and I know, kind of one thing I've noticed in the past is when they start finding them in Georgia, we're usually about 4 weeks behind. So I've seen some posts from, that we're down there, 3-4 weeks ago. So I would say if they're not coming up good yet, it's probably, definitely within the next week or so before they start popping. As long as it doesn't, I think last year it kind of got warm enough and it was wet enough, and then it kind of cooled off, and then it warmed back up, and there was never really any rain. So I just think that kind of turned them off a little bit, and it just, like I said, never got wet again.
What about turkeys? You got any, have you done any scouting or got any ideas of what you're going to do for that?
Well, when you'd asked me a little bit earlier if I'd be interested in doing this, I was kind of running through my head some things that we might be able to talk about. Obviously, spring coming up, turkey season, and I figured I'd go ahead and give a shout out to my Uncle Tim, because he's kind of my personal scout. He lives down on the property there by my grandma's house, and he's been telling me that the turkeys have been scratching up the woods like crazy back there, and he actually had a tom strutting by the outhouse that's on the backside of the property the other day. So I think I'm gonna go down this year and see if I can bag a bird down there. Actually, there was one day last fall when I was deer hunting, about a little bit before daylight, there was a barred owl hooting off in the background, and next thing I know, there's like some gobblers gobbling on the roost. Turns out they were 60 yards from me. I thought they were a little farther than that, but then later on, a dog barked, and then that set them off again, and then they finally flew down off the roost, and I'm like, oh man, that's a nice tom there leading that group of 4. And so I got out my phone and got on the DNR application, and it's like, oh shoot, turkey season's out. So I was like, because if there was something going on, I was going to buy a license real quick on my phone, and hope one of those gobblers walked in front of me, but they veered off and went down by the pond. But then later that day, I think all told there was like 7 hens that wound up running around in the woods by me. I think they'd been hanging on a property to the north, and something spooked them and it kicked them all down. But anyhow, I'd never seen turkeys in the woods when I was down there. I had them on my trail camera and stuff, but it seems that the turkey population kind of bounced back a little bit in that area. And like I said, I think I may go down there this year, at least the first couple of days, and see if I can bag one down there. And if not, I got a permission to hunt a private farm up here closer to the house, and then Tudor turned me on to a couple public ground spots not far away last year. So got a few options, but I'd really like to try and get one down there at my grandma's just for kind of sentimental purposes, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I kind of had a similar experience this year deer hunting. I actually purchased my turkey license for deer season because I ran into that same thing last year, and I have Sprint, which means I don't have any phone access to get on and buy my license, on the spot.
Right.
Which means I don't recommend Sprint because it doesn't work anywhere west of Danville. So I just went ahead and bought my license this year. And one day I was sitting in the stand and hadn't seen a deer and heard some crackling and, leaves breaking behind me. And I look over my shoulder and I see one turkey walking on the ridge behind me. And I thought, oh, man, here we go. And then another one and another one and another one and another one. It just kept going. I was like, man, how many turkeys are there back there? I ended up counting 39 total turkeys.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, walking the ridge behind me. And, of course, out of 39, not one of them got close enough to get a shot at. But,
of course.
But it was still, I was like, man, I got a turkey hunt out here. And I knew there was a lot out there because last year I counted like 22 during one sit. And that's when I decided, I needed to get my fall license and do that whole thing. And then this year there was 39. So they had a good hatch. The only problem is that turkey season's right when walleye start really getting good. So yeah. I always say I'm on a turkey hunt and get all excited about it and then end up fishing instead. But maybe this year I'll actually do it.
I know that's kind of how I am, I know like duck season, deer season pretty much overlap, and every year I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get out there with you guys, but then it's like, let's see, go sit in the marsh and freeze my butt off, or go sit in the deer stand and freeze my butt off. It's like, I'll take the deer stand. It's at least I'm not wet. And
right, yeah, at least you're dry. Yep. It takes a special person to want to go get cold and wet at maybe 1 or 2 ducks.
Yeah. Well, talking about, bad year for mushrooms last year, I think you guys have just had a couple bad winters as far as, especially this past winter. I mean, can we even call that winter?
Right.
I mean, I don't know that we even got close to a foot of snow, and that's like all total. So, I mean, and like you always say, by the time it gets cold enough to push the ducks down here from farther up north, it's, the season's been out for, 2, 3, 4 weeks at that point.
Right. Well, and this year it never even got cold enough to push them down.
Right.
We had birds going back north in February, late January, early February. So, things are messed up when usually you're getting the push of ducks coming down when they're actually going back.
Right. Yeah, so, definitely. I know. Well, that's, like when all those snow geese and all, the Goose Pond, they try and time their little festival that they have with the sandhill cranes going back north, and I think they missed it by like 3 weeks or something this year. So, yeah, it was definitely a weird winter.
And it hurts everything. Well, it does not hurt the turkeys. The turkey hatch is going to be good again. It's always good with mild winters, but, even the little things like bugs, and that sort of thing. I noticed last year we had 1 million of those little wolf spiders. Well, they're about the size of a quarter or $50. They're not little. But, we had about 1 million of those, and I expect this year we're going to have 2 million. And then, mosquitoes and everything else. It just, we need that winter to be back.
Yeah, I think I was out in the yard doing something back in February on one of those nicer days we had back then, and I'm pretty sure I had a mosquito bite me on the arm in the backyard one day. I'm like, it's February. This is nuts.
Yep. Anything else going on here in March or early April?
No, not really. Like kind of getting ready to do the mushroom thing here. I think I only went out and found them like 3 times last year, and then we finally just said, heck with it, because we just weren't finding anything. And then I'm on a 4-year turkey slump, so I'm hoping to bust out of that this year, because I really like to fry up some turkey nuggets this spring. I think that would hit the spot.
Absolutely. Well, I hope that you get on one. I hope you guys find some mushrooms here the next couple of weeks, and we need to get together and do some fishing. But other than that, man, I'll let you go.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll talk to you later this summer.
Okay. Well, I thank everybody out there for listening, and it's always good to have folks tuning in and kind of checking in to see what we're up to. So,
well, Eli, I'll talk to you.
All right. Thanks, Joey.
All right, man. Thank you. All right, everybody. That was Willowpine Pro Staffer Eli Eccles. We're going to go ahead now and jump into our interview with Alabama Pro Staffer Matt LaFleur.
Raptor Razor brings you the most innovative knife for hunters that has ever been developed. With a revolutionary design, Raptor Razor cuts quick and clean, saving you time in the field. These knives are strong, lightweight, multifunctional, and easy to clean with easy grip, non-slip, ambidextrous handles. Raptor Razor takes field dressing to a whole new level. For more info or to find a dealer near you, visit www.raptorrazor.com.
Markham's new pocket-sized handheld underwater cameras, the Recon 5 and 5 Plus, use a 5-inch color display to deliver superior screen detail and employ a combination of dark water LED and infrared lighting to punch through the darkness. The Recon 5 Plus adds a built-in DVR and on-screen display for critical information, previously only available on full-sized underwater viewing systems. This winter, see what you've been missing with a Recon from Markham Technologies, the undisputed leader in underwater cameras.
All right, everybody. I've got Willowpine, Alabama Pro Staffer Matt LaFleur on the line. How you doing today, bud?
Hey, good, man. How are you?
Can't complain. Fishing season's among us, which means I'm super busy. I'd rather fish than hunt, so this is my time of year.
Yeah, absolutely. I find myself on the other side of that issue. I'd much rather hunt than fish.
Well, you're kind of our resident waterfowler. That's your main thing. I know you deer hunt, turkey hunt too, but waterfowl's your game. How'd your season go this year down there?
It went okay. It wasn't exceptional and it wasn't bad. It went okay. We just don't have a lot of migratory ducks here in Alabama where I live in the southeast corner down by Enterprise and Dothan. So it's a lot of wood duck shoots. Every so once in a while a diver shoot. If I go an hour and a half in either direction, either down to Destin, Florida, where you can get on some phenomenal diver hunting on the Gulf Coast and get to hunt in shorts and flip-flops and chill on the beach, or you can go the other way with it and go up to Eufaula and get on some good diver shoots up that way. And something that was atypical, we got into a good puddler shoot on Eufaula this year with widgeon and even a couple of Alabama mallards, which was pretty sweet for this area. But it wasn't an exceptional year and it wasn't a bad year. I think I had more fun this season than any season I've ever had in the past, purely because I got my dog involved. Just out of pure happenstance, I took an 8-year-old Lab Rottweiler mix and took him hunting one day. And sure enough, he's now a retrieving machine.
It's such a funny story. I wish that when you started taking him, you'd have started videoing him right then. Just told the story of the 8-year-old Rottweiler Labrador that had never retrieved a duck and started, retrieving ducks. That's a wild story.
So it's absolutely hilarious, and it came out of necessity. My girlfriend didn't like getting stuck with a dog when I went on these hunting trips, and rightfully so. And one day I finally said, okay, you know what? Everybody get in the boat. And took Courtney and Roscoe both, and she's holding the dog. We're in Muskegon, Michigan. And I had one ringneck come through from right to left, and I shot it. And I got out of the boat with Roscoe and said, all right, bud, go grab it. And he swam out there and bumped one decoy and came back to me, and then bumped another decoy and came back to me, and I walked him maybe another 5 yards closer, and I said, all right, man, go get the one that's a real bird. And he went out there and grabbed it and swam all the way back to the boat. And I said, okay, we've got a baseline. This is where we're starting. And the funny looks that I get at boat launches and around the watering hole, so to speak, for taking an 8-year-old dog, no less a lab rottie mix, it gets pretty fun. He's been my best friend since college, so now we get to experience my biggest passion together, and it's just a whole lot of fun. He's not a master hunt trial finished AKC registered kind of pup that you'll see out on the trial grounds, but he's what I like to call a 20-yard dog. As long as I put a bird down within 20 yards, he's going to go out and grab it. He's my best bud, and he's been doing a great job for me this year, and I think he had as much fun as I did this season. It just adds such a different dynamic to waterfowling that I was unaware of until I started working with him. Shooting ducks is great, and I love shooting ducks to begin with, but now it's to the point where I would rather be successful in the harvest just to watch him go to work and just for him to see a new scenario and for him to get a retrieve more so than bringing that delicious table fare back to the house.
That's awesome. I know you and I have talked. I've got I call him a Dobergor because he's 3/4 lab and a quarter Doberman, and he was my duck dog for several years, and I kind of quit training him. But since the story of Roscoe came about, I've considered taking him back out just because he can tell when I'm going hunting, and he gets, kind of gets antsy and a little bit sad when he doesn't get to go. And I thought, man, maybe he'll start retrieving ducks too. Just being older and more mature and, understanding things better, I think he might do it. So next year I may have a Roscoe number 2.
Yes, an inspiration. The fact that he's 8 years old and the fact that he had never been afield a day in his life. When we say that he's been my best friend, I mean, he's been in the dorms, he's been in Michigan with me, Indiana with me, now here in Alabama, and he is a through and through spoiled house dog. Gets to sleep up on the bed, gets to sleep up on the couch, gets treats all the time. I mean, he is thoroughly spoiled. A couple of weeks ago in Missouri was the first time he ever rode in a crate in the back of a pickup truck. Out of necessity, I had to put him in one. But he's just a through and through spoiled house dog. So when we ended this year, and he ended up with 41 retrieves just this season, and I feel like if we worked in an area where the waterfowl population was a little bit better, I think we could up that number quite a bit. But with the wood ducks around here, he got a good handful, and good, bad, or indifferent, I taught him how to retrieve decoys, and I tell you what, he got at least 200 retrieves on decoys this year, and started taking them, if nothing else, just to help me pick up. So
that's awesome.
It was a really, really fun year with him.
That's very cool. I'm interested to see how that progresses next year. As I'm sure, like this year, you're going to take trips next year. And, this year you went down and guided at Whispering Oaks in Arkansas, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. I sure did. Last weekend of the duck season.
How'd that go?
It went good. Had a couple of guys in from St. Petersburg, Alaska, and they just wanted to see something different than the way they hunt up north there in Alaska. And so we did flooded rice hunts, big, comfortable pit blinds, 20-plus decoys around the pit. We ended up going to a couple of different brush blinds after that and smaller watering holes with, 2 to 3 dozen decoys out, a handful of mojos. And it was a good setup. I mean, Whispering Oaks is a world-class facility. It's a world-class lodge. Mr. George Washington runs a phenomenal outfit. And they've got the land, they've got the birds. They absolutely have the food and the camaraderie. The lodge, as you know, because you came down last year to hang out, and it's just a beautiful setup. And to see it during season, where everybody within 40 square miles is eat, sleeping, and breathing duck hunting, it's a really good time. The birds were a little bit stagnant there at the end. The last week of duck season is tough, especially once they get down here. They're a little bit call shy. They're a little bit decoy shy, especially when you've got big spreads that have been there all year. They kind of know that song and dance. But we still scratched out real good numbers. Still put a lot of birds on the ground, and had a bang-up shoot the last 12 hours of the season. I mean, once we got to the end of it, the last 15, 20 minutes of light, mallards came pouring out of nowhere with bright orange feet that had just got to town. I mean, they'd just got there. And so once the shooting light expired, we all unloaded our guns and flipped up the blind, and we're just calling at them, just having a good time, quacking and chuckling and doing feeder calls and all that stuff. And we were finishing birds with the decoys, and we were putting birds within 4 or 5 feet of the blind. I mean, we were just laughing, having a great time, messing with them as we were just covered up in ducks, a whopping 12 hours, even for that matter, a whopping 3 hours too late. But it was something to see. The facility there at Whispering Oaks is phenomenal. The land is that much better, and the hunting and the guys that work out there are true duck hunting professionals. And I was glad I could share a blind with them for a couple of days.
Do you plan to go back down next year and do the same thing?
I do, absolutely. I'm lucky enough that I've built enough rapport with Mr. Washington and his business that I'll be booking hunts there next year, and look forward to getting after it a lot more this year. They've just got too good of land and too good of hospitality to not take advantage. So I will absolutely be going out there next season.
I know when we were down there for the Brody Bend pro staff meeting, they took care of us better than I could imagine. They fed us some really good food, and again, like you were saying, had some good company, other guys that were on the team and stuff that we talked to and became friends with. And it's definitely the place to go if you're looking to go on a guided duck hunt, and one of the best places in the world to duck hunt. Anybody listening to this that's interested, get with Matt or myself or anybody at Willowpine, and we'll get you to Matt to get booked down there.
Absolutely.
Speaking of guiding hunts and all that, I know that's kind of what you do, and you're growing in the industry and that, and get pretty good at it. You did some spring guiding too, didn't you?
I did. That's right. Just a couple of weeks ago. Went up to Missouri, not far from Kansas City, and did a little snow goose guiding where I first kind of started in waterfowl.
One thing I've never done is snow goose hunt, and it's something that I've usually, the problem with snow goose hunting in me is that it comes in the spring, and like we were talking about when I first started talking, that spring is fishing season, so I start to lose interest in the waterfowl. But how'd you guys do, or what did you have to do from a guide's point of view, and then how'd you guys do overall?
Overall, we did well. Overall, we did 43 birds over 4 days, which, those who have experienced snow goose hunting before, especially world-class snow goose hunting down in Arkansas when they're first making their reverse migration up, or even down in the Boot Hill or Mound City or any of those places that are bigger snow goose areas, 40 birds could be done in 20 to 30 minutes on a hunt. It really could be. But this year has just been so weird with the weather. I mean, there was absolutely no reason on the reverse migration for the sows to stop. There was a nice south wind pushing them back up. There was sunshine. There wasn't a snow line to cover their food and keep them south. We didn't have a whole bunch of snowstorms that really held them in Arkansas for any amount of time, or even held them in Missouri for really any amount of time. When I was up there the first 2 days it was 70 some odd degrees, and I was hunting in flip-flops and shorts up under my blind. So it was definitely unique conditions in which to snow goose hunt, but we made the best of it with All or Nothing Adventures run by Corey Cribb and Andrew Bradley. Andrew did a phenomenal job the entire time. While we were out hunting or setting up or anything like that, he was out putting miles in the truck, scouting for us, making sure that we were going to be on a good feed the next day, and just really going to work. I mean, Andrew, I can't say enough about Andrew and how good of a job he did over the 5 days I was up there. But from a guide's perspective, I had told the clients to lower their expectation and was realistic with them in saying that, you know, we may not have a 100-bird day. That seems to be the industry standard these days. Everybody thinks that if you go on a guided snow goose hunt, you're going to kill 100 birds. And I hate to dispel that myth, but I'm going to dispel that myth. That's a pretty unrealistic expectation. That's just a lot of birds. A lot of things have to happen correctly to harvest that many birds, especially over decoys. I told them, I said, hey, we're either going to go out there and we're going to have a great time and we're going to hunt with your friends and family and make some memories and hopefully pile some birds up, or is your goal, you know, a big pile of birds? And they said that they just want to come out and have a good time. Full disclosure, the group was one of my good buddies from college who had just got back from a deployment to Iraq. And so he brought another guy that he worked with out there. He brought his father, his father-in-law, his brother-in-law. And the camaraderie within the group and the personalities within the group were phenomenal. I mean, we had an absolute blast during the hunt. The people made the trip. The scouting and the extra help behind the scenes from Andrew made the trip. And we got on a couple of good feeds and a couple of big spins above us. The most that had been shot out of the field that we hunted on the third day was 30. And I think we got up to 23 or 24 in one day. So we had a very respectable trip. It's just that weather and that lack of snow, sleet, hail, ice, whatever you want to throw at them, that lack of a buffer pushing the birds back south made things much more difficult. I think the majority of the migration by the time we got to Missouri was probably in North Dakota, if not in Canada already.
From your point of view, how different is it being a guide to being a customer? You know, what kind of things you have to do to set up a hunt for customers?
Oh, man, it's night and day different because I've been on both sides. From my perspective, you know, the first thing is driving from lower Alabama up toward Kansas City, Missouri. It was 13 hours and 45 minutes or so for me to drive up there. I drove up on a Wednesday night. I was out till midnight, 1 o'clock, setting in 1,800 or so decoys, 2,000 decoys, somewhere in there, making sure that the spread is set the way I want it to be for the win the next day, making sure all the decoys are set up in a particular fashion that, you know, I think is going to be successful or that Andrew thought was going to be successful. So then you got to put all of the decoys out, and you got to turn back around, go back to the shop, get the electronics ready, charge the batteries for the rotaries, charge the batteries for the electronics. No less, I had to move in with my suitcase and my dog. Everything gets more complicated when you bring a dog, so I had to make sure Roscoe was taken care of. And then finally put my head down on the pillow about 2 a.m. or so after making that long drive, just to get up at 4:15 the next day or same day and get ready to go to work and put a successful hunt on for the guys and meet up with the guys at the gas station, do your meet and greet, your safety brief, make sure everybody understands the expectations when it comes to using firearms, and just having a good time. And then you put in a 12-hour plus day from a half hour before sunrise all the way down to half hour before sunrise to a half hour after sunset. Because we decided that we were going to hunt all day. Then a guided hunt where we're going to call it at noon or we're going to call it at 1, and look for a little extra on the backside on an afternoon hunt. You pay for an all-day hunt with All or Nothing. So we hunted all day, and there's not really any point where you can catch up on sleep during a 4-day hunt, just because day 1's travel, day 2's a hunt, day 3's a hunt. Then we pulled another spread out between 2 and 3, put another I'd say 1,500 to 1,800 decoys in the ground. We tried to stay a little bit smaller on the second spread we put in. After 2 straight days of hunting, you go out to a new field, put in a new spread, rush in a bunch of layout blinds. You're not back to your camper till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning again. And then you wake up at 4 and start it all over again. So I think from the guide perspective, it's much more of a grind. That's kind of the term that's used when it comes to snow goose hunting and guiding. It's much more of a grind. You really have to enjoy what you're doing and enjoy the people you're doing it with, because it's a lot of work to hunt snows. It's just, there's more equipment, there's more electronics, there's more decoys, there's more considerations with all of that. So it's a ton of work, but it's absolutely worth it when that big 4,000 bird tornado is working up and over you and you can't barely see anything above the third layer of birds because there's just so many of them coming down on you. And when you see those big spins, it's worth it. Or you see a guy like the first sergeant that we had out with us harvest his first goose and know for a fact that when he pulled the trigger and that bird folded, to see the look on his face and how excited and how pumped up he was. Or to see a guy who, like Anthony, who had just come back from deployment. There's 2 birds on the left-hand side of the blinds. He pulls up and shoots, and he knows for a fact that's the first bird he has 100% harvested with his brand-new shotgun that he got as a deployment gift. He ends up shooting that bird, and then as the birds swing back behind, I did a little cleanup work on the back left side, and that bird ended up being banded. So to share memories like that from a guide's perspective, especially with friends, it can't really be beat. It's worth the work.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about right there. When that bird fell and to see that smile on that client's face and to know, especially even any client, but, one that just got back from Iraq, he deserves that. That's awesome. I'm glad that you were the one to put him on that bird and make that happen.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It really is. Those guys were a great crew, and I look forward to hunting with them again next year.
Now, on Facebook a couple months back, you were speaking my language because you posted a picture of a big old largemouth bass. Where'd you catch that guy at?
Oh, we got to use the term catching so loosely, Joey. We got to tell everybody that the caption on that picture was, "I would never call myself a fisherman, but I got lucky today." I caught that fish on Fort Rucker down here in Enterprise, Alabama. There's a lake called Lake Tulaco, and for anyone who's listening that lives around here, you can have my spot. It's just south of the spillway on the very south end of the lake, which is to say every soldier on post knows about this spot, so it's not a huge deal. But I went down the spillway. I threw a little crappie jig in some backwater and some pools, and I got lucky. I thought I was snagged up to begin with, which was, I think, the humorous part of the whole thing. And I started to walk down the bank thinking, man, I looked up on a log. What else is new? I'm not a very good fisherman, so it is what it is. And then after, 30 seconds or so and walking down the shoreline, the front of the pool started to hit bob, and I was like, great, a catfish. The last thing I want is a dang catfish. And all of a sudden the dorsal fin came up, and I saw it was a big old hog, and I was like, uh-oh, that's largemouth. I don't know a whole lot about fishing, but I know that's a big old bass. So I was real careful. I was fishing with some really light tackle, Shakespeare ultralight, and I had maybe 6 or 7 pound test down with a little crappie jig, because my whole purpose of being down there was to fish for crappie for SEER school students. So once I saw him come up and do a belly roll, I was like, yep, that's a good fish. I happened to have some guys down there that were fishing that could take a picture for me real quick. And it wasn't probably 30 seconds. It was out of the water, and I put it right back. It was a heck of a fish, though. I was more surprised than anybody else was that day. I was like, wow, that's the biggest bass I've ever caught. And it probably would have went, me and some friends were looking at the size and just kind of looking back on it because I didn't weigh it. It probably went a conservative 5 1/4, maybe 5 1/2 pounds, somewhere in there.
That's awesome. I was surprised to see that pop up on Facebook. Pretty cool, though. What else you got going on this spring? I know you mentioned that you were starting turkey season up there or down there. Anything else going on with that, or you looking forward to turkey season?
Yeah, so I went turkey hunting this morning. I've probably been out, 7 or 8 times this year already because our season started on 15 March, which was convenient because I got back from the snow goose hunt on 13 March or so. So I got 1 day off, and then a new season started, much to the demise of my girlfriend. She was hoping that after snow goose season that was that for a while, because I haven't hunted turkey in the past real hard. But I'm hooked up with a guy down here who's our vet for Fort Rucker. And I say vet, I mean veterinarian. And Matt is ate up with turkey. He absolutely loves it. He's as passionate about turkey hunting as I am about waterfowl. And so it's a good balance between the two of us. And it's just really weird this year. Down here, we feel like the season came in maybe 2 weeks too late because all of the toms are henned up 4 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They're still with the hens. It seems like they're a little bit further along in the breeding cycle than we want them to be. We haven't found those bachelor groups, and for whatever reason, they're just not gobbling down here. They're super quiet in the morning, and I think it's because they're just not that far from the hens. They just know where the hens are and where they can get them, and they're not terribly worried about gobbling. So they haven't been telling on themselves too much, and that's making it real difficult. But between myself and 2 other guys that I hunt with, each of them have turkeys down this year. Matt got his with a shotgun. And then my other hunting partner out at Sear School ended up getting it was like a 9-inch beard, inch spur. I want to say it was like a 10-pound bird or something like that. But he ended up shooting it at 6 paces with his bow and arrow, with a guillotine broadhead. And so he had a good hunt there. You know, you were asking about what else is going on this spring. May 17th, I leave for Alaska, and I'm doing a spring bear hunt in Fairbanks, Alaska. My dad ended up retiring up there out of the Army as a first sergeant and decided that Fairbanks was going to be home, and so he stayed up there with my stepmom, my little brother and sister, Noah and McKenna, if you guys are listening, hey. But I'll be going up, leaving 17 May. I've got a brand new Bowtech Carbon Icon compound bow that I've been shooting at the range the last 4 or 5 days. I think I finally got it dialed in where I want it, and I'll be going after a black bear with my bow and arrow. So I'm extremely excited about that trip.
It's on my bucket list to go up there and do some hunting at some time in my life. So
now you know you got the in. Whenever you want to go up there, we can make it happen.
I really want to go up there and do a caribou hunt.
Oh yeah, I've actually got pictures. When I was probably 11 or 12 years old, I had a small PSE Bandit was the bow that I carried then. And my dad and I went up the Hall Road, which is to say it's the one highway that goes north out of Fairbanks, all the way up to Prudhoe Bay, up through Adigans Pass and into Happy Valley and all these areas that people who hunt Alaska and know the Hall Road all know what I'm talking about. And once you get up through Adigans Pass and come down on the backside, that's where a lot of the migratory caribou are. And so they start making their migration. And you can sit there, you can eat, drink your coffee, hang out, watch the herd kind of move across the horizon and decide, you know, I'm going to target that bull, or, you know, let's go put a spot on that, or let's go put a stalk on that group. And it's really interesting. The pipeline is above ground, the Alaska pipeline, and so you can see where the antlers hit the pipeline and kind of dent it and scuff it, and you can kind of see where the caribou move as they migrate. I watched one stalk that my dad put on, and it seemed like every pylon up the pipeline he made, the caribou made its way down 2 more pylons. And so it's kind of funny to me at 11 years old to watch my dad moving 1, caribou move 2, dad move 1, caribou move 2. I was like, you guys are never gonna close the distance there, old man. That was all with archery tackle, because within the first 5 miles of the Hall Road, you have to use archery tackle. If you're going to use a firearm, you've got to go in 5 miles off the road. So it's a heck of a hunt. It's really not hard to do. It's not hard to resource. And once you get airfare out of the way and you get up there, you know, get a rental car, a rental truck, whatever it may be, it can be a pretty low maintenance hunt. like I said, my dad and I did it in the 93 Ford Ranger one year and had an absolute riot. Probably one of my most memorable hunts.
I definitely am going to look into that a little bit more. And, after you go up there here in a few months, we'll have to get you back on the podcast to tell us about all that. So I know you'll keep us posted on Facebook, and I do appreciate you calling in and talking with us tonight. We don't have a superstar type interview this month, so I knew that you had a lot to talk about. We haven't talked to you in a while, so appreciate you doing that, and man, we'll catch up with you here in another couple months.
You bet, brother. Take care. We'll talk to you later.
All righty.
All right, everybody, that is us for the month of March. We appreciate you tuning in. Check back next month for a new episode. I've got a pretty awesome interview lined up for that. If you got a second, go over to Facebook and give us a like, facebook.com/Willowpine. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Willowpine Outdoors. And check out our website if you're interested in any Willowpine tackle, Willowpine gear as far as hoodies, hats, beanies, shirts, anything like that, or decals. Check us out at willowpine.net. Thanks again for tuning in. And for Eli Eccles, Matt LaFleur, and all of us at the Outdoor Radio Show by Willowpine Outdoors, our motto is to hunt, fish, clean, cook, eat, repeat, fish safe, fish smart, and we'll see you next month.